For topic three, we're going to look at solving problems with subtraction. Sometimes you might see this called application. Sometimes you might see this called problem solving instead of solving problems. Either way, we're bracing ourselves for word problems, okay? So the following table lists key phrases, key words and phrases that would indicate subtraction. I'm not going to go through the whole table, but I will read the key words and phrases that you need to look for. This is not an exhaustive list. There could certainly be other words or phrases that are not in this list that would also indicate subtraction. These are just some really common ones, okay? So the word subtract, definitely the word difference. You'll see that quite a bit. Less, less than, take away, decreased by, subtracted from. Those are keywords and phrases that if you see them in a word problem, that would tell you right away that we need to start thinking subtraction. One other thing, we haven't officially discussed this, so let's officially discuss it right now. Right here it says use caution when solving problems in subtraction. While order does not matter in addition, that's what the commutative property of addition talks about from the previous worksheet. Order does matter with subtraction. There is no commutative property of subtraction, okay? Order matters. So when you read these problems, you have to be really careful about which number comes first, which number comes second. And in this section, because we're dealing with subtraction of whole numbers, it'll be fairly obvious. The larger number comes first, the smaller number comes second. But that's not always going to be the case. When we get into integers, where we talk about negative values, order is going to be much more important to us then because it won't be quite so straightforward. So really understand what number should be your minuend, the number that's being subtracted or reduced, and what number is your subtrahend, the number that is being actually subtracted, okay? So let's look at example 4. We have two examples that we're going to look at. The first one has 4 parts. The second one, I don't remember how many parts it has. But for example 4, it says solve each problem, okay? Well, parts A and B are just pretty basic. We have 12 less than 20. So when you see 12 less than 20, we want to basically take 20 and reduce it by 12, okay? So this is what I mean by order matters. So 12 less than 20, we want to start with our 20 and subtract 12. Now, a lot of us can do 20 minus 12 in our head. 20 minus 12 is just 8. Think money. If you have a $20 bill, you spend 12 of it, we can really quickly be like, we have $8 left. Sometimes when you can relate it to the real world, it makes it a little easier to do these operations. Now, if doing this horizontally isn't flying for you, go ahead and write this vertically. There's no big deal. So we have 20 minus 12. Now, I know I can't take 2 from 0. I would have to borrow. 2 becomes 1. 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 2 is 8, and then 1 minus 1 is just 0, so we don't have to write the 0 because we would never write 8 as 0, 8. We would just write it as 8. So either way you slice it, we get 8. All right, for part B, we have 450 less 275. This one is always the weirdest one because it sounds stupid in my head. Like it just to say 450 less 275, it just sounds like it's from a different era or something. I don't know. But basically, we want to take 200 or 450, excuse me, and we want to subtract 275. So we would go 450. And if you like it vertically better than horizontally, I think in this case, the vertical is going to be easier. We would go 450, subtract 275. So line these up column by column, and then we start subtracting. So 0 minus 5 we can't do. We have to borrow. So we go to the left of 0 to the 5. 5 becomes 4. 0 becomes 10. Now I can subtract 5 from 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. But I cannot take 7 from 4. So I need to borrow again. We go to the left of 4. We have another 4. So 4 becomes 3. And then that middle 4 becomes 14. 14 minus 7 is 7, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. And if you want to check yourself, remember, you can always check. You don't have to check, but if you ever feel weird about your answer, especially if you're doing some weird borrowing, you can check. 175 plus 275. Well, 5 and 5 is 10. Keep a 0, carry a 1. 7 and 7 is 14. Plus 1 is 15. So I keep a 5, I carry a 1. 2 plus 1 is 4. So everything checks out. And we can say 450 less 275 is 175. Now, for parts C and D, we have actual word problems. And sometimes these are easier for students because it gives you something tangible, it gives you something real world. Sometimes it's not easier for students. It just depends on each of you individually. But practice, look for those keywords that could indicate what operation you're doing. Here we know we're doing subtraction because we're in a subtraction section, but sometimes it's going to be mixed. You do really have to read into the problem. Look for context clues or look for keywords, okay? So for part C, it says a street vendor sells soft pretzels and hot dogs. On Friday, the vendor sold 172 hot dogs and 201 pretzels. How many more pretzels than hot dogs did the vendor sell? Well, in this case, there's not really a straightforward key phrase that indicates subtraction. Like if we go back to that table that had the keywords and phrases for subtraction, there's not any of those words in here, okay? But how many more than, okay, that can kind of indicate subtraction, okay? How many more than? So we want to know how many more pretzels than hot dogs were sold. So we want the difference in these two values. So we want to take the number of pretzels, we want to subtract the number of hot dogs, and the difference between these two numbers indicates how many more pretzels were sold. Okay, so I need to do my subtraction. I've got everything lined up vertically. I cannot take 2 from 1. I cannot borrow from 0. So I want to go to the left to the first non-zero digit, which is the 2. So 2 becomes 1, 0 becomes 10, and now I can do my borrowing. I still can't take 2 from 1, but I can now borrow from the 10. So 10 becomes 9, 1 becomes 11. Okay, so 11 minus 2 is 9. 9 minus 7 is 2, and then 1 minus 1 is 0, but we don't want to actually write the 0 because you would never see 29 written 029. That's weird. All right, now when you're dealing with word problems, you always want to describe your answer. So I would say 29 more pretzels were sold. Were sold. So anytime you're dealing with a word problem, write your answer and you have to describe it. At the very least, you need to put a unit. So here we would at minimum have to put 29 pretzels. But it's even better if you can say 29 more pretzels were sold. So just a really quick sentence to describe your answer. All right, part D. Angel had 981 in his checking account. His monthly bills totaled $786. How much will be in Angel's account after the monthly bills were paid? Again, this is a situation where if you go to that list of keywords and phrases, there's not really any of those keywords or phrases in this problem, but we have to use our just real world context here. You had so much money, you paid your bills, you know you're taking money away, so we need to subtract. So we want to take the original balance in Angel's account, which was 981, and subtract the total of the bills, which was 786. So let's see. I cannot take 6 from 1, so I would need to borrow. Directly to the left of 1 is 8. 8 becomes 7. 1 becomes 11. Well, 11 minus 6 I can do. That's just 5. But now I can't take 8 from 7, so I have to borrow again. I go to the left of the 7, which is a 9. 9 becomes 8. 7 becomes 17. So 17 minus 8 is 9. And then 8 minus 7 is 1. So 195. What does that mean? We would say Angel has $195 left in his account. So remember, always describe your answers when you're dealing with any type of word problem. Okay, so that's it for example. What example was that? Example 4. Let's look at example 5. So we've seen this table before. I think this is now the 3rd time we've seen this table. Let me shrink it a little bit more so we can see all the problems at once. Okay, so this problem says use the given table to answer the following questions. Remember, anytime you're given a table, a chart, a graph, always look for a description about the table, the chart, and the graph. So in case you have forgotten, this table shows the top 10 countries by medals won for the 2021 Summer Olympics. I think this might be slightly different. At some point we were doing 2016, I think. Either way, we've got the top countries by medals won, okay? So we have gold medals, silver medals, bronze medals, and then we have the total medals won by each of these 10 countries. So let's answer the questions based on this. So for part 1, it says, how many more medals did the USA win than China? So we just want to take the difference in these two numbers. Again, sometimes more than, even though that sounds like addition, if you want to know how much more than, you're frequently going to be subtracting. So we want to take the number of medals the US won, which is 113. We want to subtract the number of medals that China won, which is 89. And we start our subtraction. We line this up vertically. I cannot take 9 from 3, so I borrow. 0 or 1 becomes 0, 3 becomes 13. 13 minus 9 is 4. And then 0 minus 8, you can either think of that 0 automatically as 10 because there's already a 1 in front of it, or you can do the official borrowing. So if I borrow, this 1 becomes a 0 and this 0 becomes a 10. Either way, 10 minus 8 is 2. So we would say 24 more medals were won by the USA. All right, remember, always describe your answer. All right, 2, how many more gold medals, we're looking specifically at gold medals, how many more gold medals did Japan win than Italy? So just looking at the gold column and then looking at Japan and Italy, we can see that Japan won 27 gold medals and Italy won 10. So we would take 27 minus 10. If you need to do this one vertically, you can, but 27 minus 10 just ends up being 17 more gold medals were won by, was it Japan? Yes. So there you have it. Part 3, how many more silver medals did Russia win than Great Britain? So let's go to silver. Let's look at Russia and Great Britain. So it looks like Russia won 28 medals, whereas Great Britain only won 20 when we're talking specifically silver. So we would say 8 more silver medals were won by Russia. Now, you don't have to word this exactly like this, but you do need to make sure you always describe your answers when you're dealing with any type of word problem, whether that's dealing with a chart, a graph, a table, or just a flat out word problem. Let's see if I can fit all of this in one screen. Okay, there we go. So how many more bronze medals than silver medals did Australia win? So we're only interested in Australia. So let me highlight Australia so we can know what we're looking at. And we want to know bronze versus silver. So they won 22 bronze medals, but they only won 7 silver medals. So we want to do 22 minus 7. If you can do 22 minus 7 in your head horizontally, that's fantastic. If you need a little help, that's okay too. You can line this up vertically. So I can't take 7 from 2, but I can borrow. So the first 2 becomes a 1, the second 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 I can do. 12 minus 7 is 5. And then 1 right here, there's nothing to subtract from it, so I just drop it down. So Australia won 15 more silver than bronze. Wait, I think they won more bronze, actually. They won more bronze than silver medals. So again, make sure you describe your answer. Now, anytime you're dealing with word problems, I'm okay with calculators being used on word problems, okay? Think of it as a time-saving device, but you have to show me your work, okay? You have to show me your setup, I should say. So in a situation like this, if I were going to do this problem and say, hey, calculators are fine, you need to at least show me 22 minus 7, 28 minus 22, 27 minus 10. You need to show me 113 minus 89. For the previous problems, let me get it to scroll. I would need to see at least 201 minus 172, 981 minus 76, and then you could use your calculator. So again, a lot of what we're doing is learning how to do this by hand and then learning how to use the calculator appropriately. So once you show me that you know how to add and subtract by hand, using your calculator on word problems is fine. It's a time-saving device. It's technology. Let's utilize technology, but you still have to show me your setup so I understand what you told your calculator to do. So all of those things that I circled on the last few problems, that's what you have to show me to earn the right to then use the calculator, okay? So you will definitely be asked to do some of these without a calculator. There will be some type of in-class assessment where you have to do the work by hand and then the calculator usage, okay? So keep that in mind.